I've brought this forward in budget and mentioned it in budget for the past 2 years. Sent it to the budget committee members as options. I did explore some options with my state representative and a couple of the legal staff for the state legislature. Basically, here are the options for county taxpayers if they want fire service in the unincorporated part. There's 4 options. One is what's our current model, where the VFDs continue to have residents donate through campaign drives and fundraisers, which is voluntary. And if everybody would contribute, they would be adequately funded. But the problem is county residents don't contribute to their county fire departments, and if they did, this problem would be solved. Second model is also part of our current model. I've just kind of broken out in 2 parts, that the volunteer fire departments continue to have the county, meaning city and unincorporated residents, funding through charitable contributions. And in some regards, that's involuntarily. Our entire charitable contribution process is an involuntary process. So a new model that I've tried to present is that the VFDs move to a subscription-based model, such as Blount County, which is a public utility, which the state would have to change a bracketing, population bracketing to do something like that. I've already talked to the state representatives about that. Or there are cities like Karnes, Tennessee, which is a non-utility district that has gone to a subscription-based model. And I'll say that's a mix of voluntary and involuntary, but voluntary meaning the unincorporated or the city residents are alerted to the fact of, hey, if you want fire protection, for us to come out, we'll charge you $200 a year. And there's a lot of people who give $75 a year, $600 a year to our current volunteer fire departments, citizens do. And so I'm just throwing out a number here, say $150 a year, $200 a year. That's what this subscription-based model is. And people in the unincorporated areas of the county understand that they don't have city services. That includes fire and police. They have sheriff, but they don't have police, like city police. They don't have fire. They don't have necessarily sewer or water. They might be on well or septic. They do not have trash service. So but they don't pay the taxes in it. And so that's what unincorporated unincorporated county residents understand and do, is when they live out in that area. So what the subscription model does, it says, hey, if a volunteer fire department chooses to go to subscription model, they're going to let everybody in their service area know, hey, this is what we're doing. You can either pay X amount of dollars a year, or just not do anything and just gamble the dice. And if we come out to you, we're going to charge you $3,000 to $4,000 to put out the fire, and that'll be, and so that's what Blount County does. That's what these cities do in Tennessee. There is a model and there is a precedence for that for fire service. And then, as my fellow commissioner says, is another option is to send a referendum to unincorporated residents to vote on creating fire tax districts to raise property taxes in unincorporated areas, which would create a new countywide fire department similar or greater in scope, budget, and magnitude to the EMS department, which is like $17 million or $17 million now. Fire department would be more than that. And that was mentioned by a volunteer fire department supporter during the public comments. I've asked, a lot of my residents are in unincorporated areas, and I've asked them, do you want to be taxed more for this service? And like, no. And so I encourage them. I've always been a supporter of volunteer fire departments. I've always voted for funding and budget increases, and I'll share briefly what I did. My name was mentioned on this piece of paper back in March, and my recommendation was, I will not support, I know we can't do a referendum on a fire tax, but you could do a private act, send it up to the state legislature, asking them to do it. So that's another way to do it. I'll offer that as a suggestion, but I'm not in support of it because I know my county residents do not want their property taxes raised to create yet another county department and government that will grow in magnitude and scope and will continually to increase their taxes exponentially, because it will be very expensive. I remember Commissioner Mo Taylor and I were talking about this when I first got elected, and he had approached our finance department about this, like how much money would it be? And it would be a substantial amount on the tax rate for unincorporated citizens for this. Easiest, best solution for me is a subscription model, because that is the most capitalistic way. You pay if you want it, if you don't, and here's the problem if you don't do this. You're going to pay $3,000 or $4,000 for that house fire. Now, the probability of your house catching on fire is very low. So that's a risk that people take. So only 10% of all 911 calls are fire-related nationwide. That's an average, and that was a couple years ago. It might have changed a little bit. So I'm not going to support this because I know my constituents do not support a fire tax, but I do support measures to increase funding. And, we've taken $6 million and given to the schools when they didn't need it, in my opinion, to increase the MOE, when I think we could have given that to the fire department. Back in March, I did make a motion in legislative. It was asked for me to bring that forward in legislative, and I did so. And basically what my motion was according to TCA 5-9-101, I proposed that we eliminated the current nonprofit allocation process for VFDs that we're doing right now, and instead do a simple nonprofit donation allocation to each department's probably not the right word, fire hall. There's 13 fire halls, I'll say, so that we have. So my motion in legislative that we sent to budget back in March was to give them each $90,000 a year with no other pots of money to be shared. Right now they get this pot of money they're sharing, then we're giving them each individually, and they get together and figure out on this pot of money, hey, do you want 20 grand, 50 grand, 5 grand, what is your need? And the fire chiefs do it amongst themselves, but that's their prerogative because we're not involved. It's a nonprofit. We can't be involved. We just give them the money as a nonprofit allocation. So what my motion was is to give them $90,000 per fire hall, and they could do best with it what they wanted to do. And we did increase last year from the previous year. We increased by 52% from $450,000 up to $680,000. That's approximately 52% increase we gave them last year. This year it's $690,000 is in our budget. So still a little bit more. But if you, in my proposal, if you gave each of them $90,000, it would have taken that $680,000 up to $1.17 million, which is less than, it's like a $475,000 increase, $479,000 increase. That would be recurring yearly, but it's cheaper than what was proposed for the step raises tonight. I mean, it was cheaper. I mean, if being honest, but this is recurring money, so that would have been a 72% increase per department based on what they got if you pull out the allocations. So I don't necessarily am not going to make a motion to do that because I know we're not paying any money in debt service this year. It's not even on the budget. It just kind of shocked me because it's my 7th year being here and I've never seen debt service. Penny's not allocated to paying down debt. So we're not paying down debt this year. I understand, I've heard the reasonings why, so I'm not going to argue that. But I do know that we possibly have funds. So my request would be is to send this back to budget in your request for this type of thing. Send it back to budget. See what we have, if we can come up with $479,000 in our budget to allocate, to go with my original plan that came out of legislative, that we passed unanimously out of legislative, I believe, or might have been one person voted against. I think you might have voted against it. It did go almost unanimously to the budget committee for this purpose to look at it. It hasn't happened yet, but I think that's a better plan than fire taxes. I think it's a better plan. Obviously, it helps bridge some gaps for our volunteer fire departments now. It's not a magic bullet solution, but it's exponentially a lot more than they had 2 years ago, going from $450,000 up to $1.17 million. So I guess I would make an amendment to defer this back to budget completely so that we can relook at my original proposal that came out of legislative.